You're listening to the 3 Feet Radio Show with Ben Carbonaro and Luke Herbert. From our studios come special guests and netball commentary, exclusively on YouTube.
Good afternoon, listeners, and welcome again to another edition of the 3 Feet Radio Show. It might be the end of the ANZ Championship season, but after that, we've got the Australian Netball League at the moment. And joining me in the studio to discuss that further is my co-host, Luke Herbert. G'day, Luke.
G'day, Ben, and I've been looking forward to this show for a long time, given the discussions that Kiwi netball fans have about the lack of development pathways in New Zealand. So why don't you get us started, Ben?
I most certainly will. And joining us today is Adelaide Thunderbirds assistant coach, Australian 21 and under coach, and also coach of the Southern Force in the Australian Netball League in Tania Obst. G'day, Tania. How are you today?
Hi, boys. I'm good. How are you going?
Very well, thank you. Very excited. Obviously, ANL's had two full rounds, and it's been an impressive start to the year for your Force side, with wins against Queensland Fusion and Tassie Spirit first up.
Yes, we had last week, or the weekend just gone off, but opened up the weekend before with two very good wins. You never quite know what to expect from each team in the Australian Netball League, but yeah, we were obviously very happy to get those two wins on the board straight away.
And just very briefly, for the sake of the listener outside of New Zealand, can you just outline how in the ANL you play like more than one game in a round?
Yeah, so the ANL, you either have double headers or, as we've got coming up, a triple header this weekend. It's obviously a competition where there's 10 teams competing, and it's over an 8-week period. So we need to obviously play everyone once before the final series, which means we have to back up with double headers, and in some instances the triple header. So very a tough competition, but I suppose Commonwealth Games and World Champs, the World Cups, you have to back up day after day, so it's a good lead into that as well.
Obviously, Tania, you've got experience by being in the ANZ system with the Thunderbirds, and I mean, they have short turnarounds sometimes as well, but is there anything different that you have to do in terms of turnarounds in the ANL? Like, you know, you might play one game at night, and then you've got to rock up and play the next morning with the Force. How do you prepare for that with short turnaround?
Yeah, it is difficult. And yes, we do, with the ANZ, you can have sort of, coming back from New Zealand, you know, you might then have to be on the road, internationally again, you know, with 3 or 4 days. But in the ANL, in this instance, we play, at 8:30 on Saturday night and then have to turn around and front up again at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. So, recovery procedures and making sure that the girls are recovered appropriately is an absolute must. And I suppose it's also from a coach perspective, you obviously really focusing on the first game, but you also need to have a little bit of an eye on that second game as well. So your preparation for that second game and the reviewing of the previous game and what you want to correct means that coaches probably don't get a lot of sleep in that quick turnaround. So it just is a lot of prior preparation for each weekend.
And just following along this line, and speaking specifically of fitness, what kind of emphasis in the ANL then did the teams put on player fitness because of the short turnaround?
Well, it's an absolute must, and you know, if I can use the example of World Cups and Commonwealth Games, you do need to be extremely fit to be able to play you know, a couple of games within a 24, 48-hour period is an absolute must. And I suppose our national underage championships also are played like that. So the girls are, to some extent, conditioned to do it. But certainly, you need to have a really good base of fitness behind you, as well as obviously looking after your body and recovering appropriately is even more critical.
And this weekend you do come down to Melbourne. You'll be taking on the Victorian Flames, the Victorian Fury, and the Netball New South Wales Blues. Should be 3 really good games, especially the Fury. The Fury have probably been the benchmark across the history of the ANL, Tania.
Yes, they have, and you look at their list, and yet again they are ANZ contracted players are in there, whether it's this year or in previous years. The likes of an Erin Hoare and Alice Teague-Neal, a young player coming up, as well as a Seth Popolo, who's been on. Obviously, I've worked with her at the Thunderbirds, so. You look at their list and they've got ANZ experience all over the court, which makes it really a tough ask for our girls, but one that we'll be looking to see how we go against this type of athlete. So a really good challenge coming up, and not just the Furies. We can't look past the Flames as well. Victoria have a really good depth of talent in their state, and that Flames game for us on Friday night is obviously where we'll start our focus and try and get that win on the board and then turn our focus to the Furies.
And just speaking of the ANZ Championship, what sort of role do you feel the ANL plays in bridging the gap between the State League and the ANZ Championship?
Look, I think it's a really big role. It allows ANZ bench players some quality match time to obviously push their case to get ANZ court time or an ANZ contract. It allows ANZ coaches to come and watch those athletes, not just in their local states, but also against Australia's next best athletes. So it is a critical part in our high performance pathway within Netball Australia for those athletes to have an opportunity to push into an ANZ team, which then obviously push into the Australian Diamond squad.
You say pushing up to get an ANZ contract. It's obviously a good opportunity for girls who might, be sort of second or third down the pecking order of players and what have you, or from in the sense of overseas. Look at what MY Kumwenda did. Had an outstanding couple of years playing for the Peninsula Club in the VNL, and then played ANL for the Fury and got picked up by the Tactics. Obviously, Tactics didn't perform that well this year, Tanya, but MY is certainly a good example of what happens if you do well in the ANL.
Oh, absolutely. And we can also go to the case of a KO Watts who was working with me in a sassy environment and, was in previously an institute environment and then was playing in state league and came back into the sassy environment, played ANL, had an opportunity to trial for the Magic and, her story then speaks for itself, winning an ANZ Championship with the Magic and now obviously KO's playing with the Fever. So it's just another opportunity for girls who, once you get out of the underage, sometimes you can feel like there isn't an opportunity, but this ANL competition absolutely gives you that opportunity to impress.
And just staying with netball for a little while, away from your roles as Australian 21 and under coach, Southern Force coach and Adelaide Thunderbirds assistant coach, you work with the South Australian Sports Institute. Could you please tell us a bit about your role there?
Yeah, well, my role at the Institute, I basically individually manage all of South Australia's nationally talent identification athletes. All girls who have been nationally identified by Netball Australia are then in an institute role, and I then look after those from managing their, myself and my team, strength and conditioning, as well as their individual development in technically and tactically. We also, through the Sports Institute, have a sports psychologist. So I really am, as I said, I case manage those girls for their individual development along the high performance pathway within Netball Australia. So it's a job I am very fortunate to be in. It would be a job that I do for free, but obviously I get paid to do a job that I absolutely love. So very fortunate in that respect.
And obviously, just back on the Force too, Tanya, I've got the team list here in front of me. There's obviously some very talented girls away from ANZ contracted players that are in the Force side. Could you tell us about maybe some that our listeners might want to look out for if they get a chance to get along and watch some ANL action this year?
Well, outside of our Thunderbirds listed girls, a couple that spring to mind straight away that had great weekends would be Cherie Wingard, who has previously been on an ANZ, she was with the Thunderbirds. Luca Thompson, who has always been in development sides but never been able to quite push through. She's playing some of the best netball I've ever seen her play. And Georgia Beaton, who was on Thunderbirds from a young age and hasn't got a contract at the moment. However, she is still only, all of those girls are only, 23, 24, 25, so they're not old, but, they're playing some of the best netball that I've seen them play. So, we do have some older experienced players helping our younger, talented athletes.
Yeah, and I just want to switch gears here to the Commonwealth Games. Incidentally, the Silver Ferns are flying to Glasgow this evening, so we have quite a nice tie-in for the program. But what are your predictions for the Glasgow Commonwealth Games?
I think it's going to be great. I mean, obviously I'm expecting and hoping for Australia to bring home the gold medal, but straight away I think Australia would play Wales first, and then our second game against England should be an absolute ripper. Watching those girls go at it. England in the last series beat Australia, so they would take a lot of confidence into that, but I'm sure that our team is ready to amend that loss and make sure that we get it back. And then the final series, you just never know. I mean, the last one went into double overtime. What a game that was in Delhi. So obviously predicting Australia to be gold, but just really looking forward to watching some fantastic international netball in the coming weeks.
Obviously, the ANL competition means there's even greater depth in Australian netball, because we saw a lot of girls not make it, but there's still some girls in the ANL that are still good enough to play at that top level as well.
Yeah, I think Australia, that's where we really have an advantage over a number of countries with our depth of athletes. You look at some of the players who didn't make the Australian team, and they're extremely unlucky, and we need to continue to develop that talent. We need to keep pushing our best players, our current diamonds need to continue to develop and be pushed, and the competitions like the ANL will certainly do that. So we've got a healthy pool of talented athletes ready to step up when that time comes.
All right, Tania, thanks very much for joining us today and giving us a bit of an insight into the level below the ANZ Championship in the ANL. I'll be at some of the games across the weekend in Melbourne. I'm usually floating around somewhere.
I look forward to seeing you then.
All right, then. Thanks very much for joining us.
You've been listening to the 3 Feet Radio Show with Ben Carbonaro and Luke Herbert. Tune in next time for more special guests and netball commentary exclusively on YouTube.